Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books, from captivating narratives to insightful guides. Join us for discussions and summaries, sharing our thoughts and takeaways. Let's get reading. Today we're doing a deep dive into Enjoy Your Ageless Mental Agility by Catherine C. Wetzel. You shared this book with us, hoping to glean some tips and techniques to maintain that mental sharpness.
It really is.
And I have to say, this book is packed with them.
It really is. It's a fascinating blend of science and practical advice. And what I find particularly compelling is how Wetzel seamlessly connects the two.
Okay.
She doesn't just tell you what to do, she explains the why behind it, grounding her recommendations in solid research.
So let's jump right in. One of the first things that caught my eye was the discussion on learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Right.
Now, I'll admit, I thought I had a pretty good grasp on this concept, but Wetzel takes it to a whole new level.
Right. It's not just about recognizing your preferred style, but understanding how those preferences actually manifest in your brain activity. She uses PET scans to illustrate this, showing how different areas of the brain light up depending on how you're learning.
That's what blew me away. Imagine seeing your brain in action as you learn. That's what these scans show. For example, visual learners show increased activity in the occipital lobe, which is responsible for processing visual information, while auditory learners have more action in the temporal lobe, which handles auditory processing.
It makes you realize that learning isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one person might not work for another. And understanding these neurological differences can help us tailor our learning experiences for better results.
Absolutely. It's like having a personalized roadmap for your brain. And speaking of brain maps, the book also dives into the neuron superhighway, explaining how our thoughts actually travel in our brains.
This is where we get into the fascinating world of neurons, axons, and dendrites. Think of it like a complex transportation system. Neurons are the vehicles carrying information, axons are the highways, and dendrites are the off-ramps and intersections.
So every time we learn something new, we're essentially building new roads and expanding our brain's transportation network.
Precisely. The more you learn, the more intricate and efficient this network becomes. And that's the key takeaway here. By actively engaging in learning, we can create a more robust and adaptable brain.
That's incredibly encouraging. It means we have the power to shape our own cognitive abilities. And here's another interesting point Wetzel brings up: the differences between male and female brains.
This section really highlights the biological factors that influence how men and women process information. For instance, men tend to excel in spatial abilities, while women are often better at reading facial expressions and emotions.
Okay, I have to ask, is this just a reinforcement of stereotypes, or is there legitimate scientific backing to these claims?
Wetzel is very careful to point out that these are general tendencies, not absolutes, and there's always individual variation. However, she does cite numerous studies that support these differences, linking them to variations in brain structure and hormonal influences.
So while we shouldn't make sweeping generalizations, it's helpful to be aware of these tendencies. It could even explain some of the communication gaps we sometimes experience between genders.
Exactly. Recognizing these differences can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves and those around us. It's not about saying one is better, but rather appreciating the diversity of our strengths.
I love that perspective. It reminds us that diversity isn't just a social ideal, it's woven into the very fabric of our brains. So we've explored how our brains learn, but what about boosting that brain power? What kind of strategies does Wetzel recommend?
Well, one area she focuses on is memory, particularly remembering names.
Oh,
We've all been there.
I'm a champion at that, unfortunately.
Struggling to recall someone's name moments after meeting them.
I'm always relying on those awkward introductions where I hope someone else will see their name first.
Well, Wetzel offers some really practical techniques for overcoming this common challenge. She emphasizes the importance of focused attention during introductions, associating the name with something memorable, and repeating it without being overly repetitive, of course.
I'm definitely going to try that association technique. Do you have any tricks you use to remember names?
I find that visualizing the person's name written on their forehead, even if just mentally, helps it stick better.
See?
It sounds strange, but it works.
That's a great example. It's not just about memorizing techniques, it's about finding what works for you. And I'm curious, beyond names, what other memory-boosting tips does the book offer?
Wetzel is a big advocate for organization as a tool for better recall. Think about how you organize your physical space. You probably have systems for filing documents, arranging your clothes, and so on. She applies the same principles to information organization.
So instead of just trying to cram information into our brains randomly, we should create a system for categorizing and storing it.
Exactly. She recommends techniques like chunking. grouping similar items together, and using hierarchies to organize information. Similar to how you might arrange files in folders on your computer, she even suggests using visual aids like mind maps or diagrams to create a more memorable structure.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's all about making information more digestible and accessible to our brains. And speaking of unexpected insights, the book delves into something I found quite fascinating: the role of dreams in memory consolidation.
This is where Wetzel challenges the notion that sleep is just a time for rest. She explains that our brains are still actively processing information while we sleep.
I've always been curious about dreams. I have some pretty vivid ones, but I never thought they were actually doing anything productive.
Well, Wetzel highlights research showing that dreams play a crucial role in memory consolidation, particularly during REM sleep. She even mentions studies exploring how auditory cues during REM sleep can improve learning,
Auditory cues during REM sleep.
which is just mind-blowing to me.
That's a whole new world I never even knew existed.
Right.
I'm definitely going to need to hear more about that in part 2 of our deep dive.
We'll definitely delve deeper into that. But before we wrap up part 1, there's one more area I want to touch on: nutrition. We all know that food is fuel for our bodies, but Wetzel emphasizes its impact on brain function, going beyond basic vitamins and minerals.
So what are we talking about here? Give us the brain-boosting grocery list.
Well, she talks about neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which impact mood and cognition, and highlights the crucial role of healthy fats, particularly omega-3s, for brain health. And I love that she takes the time to debunk some popular diet myths along the way.
Wait, so no more all-wine diet for enhanced creativity? Bummer.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's refreshing to have evidence-based advice on what actually nourishes our brains.
It's all about separating fact from fiction, and that's what Wetzel does so brilliantly in this book. She empowers us with knowledge, backed by solid research, so we can make informed choices about our mental well-being. Welcome back. I'm eager to dive into one of the most compelling studies Wetzel highlights, the work of Dr. K. Warner Shea.
Oh, yes. You mentioned this earlier. Tell me.
He conducted longitudinal studies on cognitive aging and discovered something remarkable.
What exactly did Dr. Shea find?
He discovered that with just 5 hours of targeted training, seniors significantly improved their mental agility.
Hold on, just 5 hours? That's less than a typical workday. What kind of training produced such dramatic results?
It wasn't just any brain game. In such a short time, Shea focused on specific cognitive skills, like inductive reasoning, spatial orientation, and verbal memory. He designed exercises to challenge those abilities directly, leading to impressive improvements. Some participants even regained mental abilities they'd lost over 14 years.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds almost too good to be true.
That's a great question.
Were there any limitations to his research?
Like any study, it's important to consider the context. While the results are promising, it's important to remember that these were specific cognitive skills targeted in a controlled environment. More research is always needed, but it certainly highlights the potential of brain training.
It definitely gives me hope. So, if we want to try replicating those training methods, where do we start?
You'll be happy to hear that Wetzel provides a whole section of fun activities and games in her book that you can try right now.
Perfect. So hoping for some actionable takeaways. What kind of activities are we talking about?
There's a great variety. She includes everything from anagrams and spatial relationship puzzles to a challenge called the Boxer Rebellion.
Boxer Rebellion. Wow, that sounds intense. Is it some kind of strategic combat simulation?
Not quite. It's a fun puzzle that involves figuring out which patterns can be folded into a box with a lid. It's a fantastic way to exercise your spatial reasoning skills.
That actually sounds really fun. It's like those brain teaser puzzles you find in puzzle books.
Exactly.
I love those.
And these are just a few examples. Wetzel also includes things like magic mental minutes.
Now you have my attention. What are magic mental minutes? Is it some kind of secret society ritual?
It's more fun than a secret ritual, I promise. They're essentially magic tricks that will make you seem like a mind reader.
Okay, now that's something I can get behind. I'm always looking for ways to impress my friends at parties.
You'll be the life of the party with your newfound mental math skills. But beyond the entertainment value, these games and exercises highlight the importance of engaging your mind in playful and challenging ways. It's about finding activities that spark your curiosity and make you excited to learn.
I totally agree. It shouldn't feel like a chore. Wetzel's approach seems to emphasize that joy of discovery, which is so important. And speaking of joyful discoveries, you mentioned earlier that we delved deeper into the topic of auditory cues during REM sleep and learning.
This is a relatively new area of research, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Tell me more about that.
Studies have shown that playing certain sounds, or even spoken words during REM sleep, can actually enhance learning and memory consolidation.
Hold on. So you're telling me that I could learn a new language or memorize facts
Yeah.
just by listening to recordings while I sleep?
Well, it's not quite that simple. The research is still ongoing, and the effects are subtle. It's not a substitute for active learning, but it could potentially boost the
Even
process.
so, that's incredible. What's the science behind it? How can sounds during sleep possibly impact learning?
It's believed that during REM sleep, our brains are replaying and consolidating memories from the day. By introducing auditory cues related to what we've learned, we may be strengthening those neural connections, making the memories more robust.
So it's like giving our brains a little extra nudge in the right direction
Exactly.
while they're busy filing away information.
Think of it like a librarian whispering helpful hints as you're browsing the shelves.
That's a brilliant analogy. It's amazing how much we're still learning about the incredible complexities of the brain. And it seems that sleep plays a much more active role than we ever imagined.
Absolutely. And Wetzel doesn't stop there. She also emphasizes the importance of aligning our sleep schedules with our natural circadian rhythms for optimal cognitive function.
Ah. You mentioned circadian rhythms earlier. Can you explain what they are?
Circadian rhythms are essentially our body's internal clock and why they matter so much for our sleep. A 24-hour cycle that regulates various biological processes, including sleep-wake cycles, hormone production, and even body temperature. These rhythms are influenced by external cues like light and darkness, but they also have an inherent biological basis.
So if we're constantly fighting against our natural circadian rhythms,
Yeah.
like staying up late when our bodies are signaling it's time to rest,
Precisely.
it can mess with our sleep.
And as Wetzel points out, poor sleep can have a cascade of negative effects on cognitive function, impacting everything from memory and attention to decision-making and emotional regulation.
That makes a lot of sense. I know when I'm sleep deprived.
We've all been there. I feel like my brain is in a fog. It's harder to focus, remember things, and just generally function at my best.
And it's not just about the quantity of sleep. The quality matters too.
Wetzel highlights the importance of establishing a consistent sleep routine, creating a conducive sleep environment, and avoiding stimulants like caffeine and alcohol close to bedtime.
So it's like creating a sanctuary for our brains to rest and recharge. No more late-night Netflix binges for me.
Well, maybe just one episode. But seriously, prioritizing sleep is one of the best investments we can make in our cognitive health.
And speaking of investments, Wetzel also touches on the financial side of aging.
That's an important point. Financial stress can definitely take a toll on mental well-being.
What kind of advice does she offer in that area?
She doesn't go into detailed financial planning strategies, but she emphasizes the importance of financial security and planning for the future. She also highlights the value of social connections and support networks as we age, which can provide a buffer against stress and isolation.
It's all about creating a strong foundation for well-being, both mentally and emotionally. It's not just about individual effort. It's about nurturing those relationships that provide support and a sense of belonging.
Exactly. And those connections often go hand in hand with staying active and engaged in our communities.
That reminds me, Wetzel also talks about the importance of physical exercise for maintaining cognitive health.
Absolutely.
Right.
She highlights research showing that both aerobic exercise and strength training can have significant benefits for brain function, even in older adults.
Okay, I know we're supposed to exercise regularly, but honestly, sometimes it feels like a chore. How does Wetzel make the connection between physical activity and brain power? Does she offer any tips for staying motivated?
Welcome back. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into Enjoy Your Ageless Mental Agility. And I'm excited to wrap up with some key takeaways and hopefully some inspiration to put all this knowledge into action. It's been a fascinating exploration of how we can nurture and maintain our cognitive abilities throughout our lives, and I think Wetzel does a fantastic job of weaving together scientific insights with practical advice,
Absolutely.
making it accessible and engaging for everyone.
You know, one of the things that really struck me throughout this book is how interconnected everything is. It's not just about one specific technique or strategy.
That's such a crucial point.
It's about embracing a holistic approach to well-being.
Wetzel emphasizes that physical health, mental health, social connections, and even financial security all play a role in cognitive function. It's like a symphony where each instrument contributes to the overall harmony.
Exactly. If one element is out of tune, it
Yeah.
can impact the entire composition. So where do we start? If someone is feeling overwhelmed by all this information and wants to make some positive changes,
I think the most important thing is to identify areas where you feel you can make some improvements. What's the first step?
is it getting more sleep, incorporating more physical activity into your routine, finding ways to manage stress more effectively,
Hmm.
or perhaps it's exploring new learning opportunities and challenging your brain in new ways?
It's about finding those areas where you feel a little out of balance and
Mhm.
taking small, manageable steps to restore that equilibrium.
Exactly. It's not about making drastic overnight changes, but rather about incorporating sustainable habits into your daily life. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but the key is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep seeking out those things that spark your curiosity and bring you joy.
Absolutely.
Speaking of joy, one thing I really appreciate about Wetzel's approach is that she doesn't make it sound like a daunting task. She emphasizes that maintaining mental agility can be fun and engaging.
She reminds us that learning should be an enjoyable experience, not a chore. Whether it's trying out a new brain teaser, learning a new skill, or simply engaging in conversations that challenge your perspectives. There are so many ways to keep your mind active and stimulated.
And I love that she provides concrete examples and exercises throughout the book. It's not just theory. It's practical guidance that we can apply to our own lives.
One of my favorite examples is the magic mental minutes she describes. These are essentially math tricks that make you look like a mind reader, but they're also a fun way to sharpen your mental math skills.
I've been practicing those. And I have to admit, it's pretty satisfying to see the look on people's faces when you correctly guess their number, or solve a seemingly impossible calculation in your head.
It's a great example of how learning can be both stimulating and entertaining. And I think that's the key message Wetzel leaves us with, that maintaining mental agility is not just about preventing decline, it's about embracing a lifelong journey of growth, exploration, and discovery.
It's about nurturing our curiosity, challenging our assumptions, and finding joy in the process of learning and expanding our horizons. And that's a message that resonates with me deeply.
Me too. And I hope it inspires our listeners to embark on their own journeys of lifelong learning. Armed with the knowledge and tools Wetzel has so generously provided in this book,
This has been an incredible deep dive, and I feel like I've gained so much valuable information and inspiration.
it's been a pleasure exploring these topics with you, and I hope our listeners are feeling equally informed and empowered to take charge of their cognitive health.
I have a feeling they are. But even though we've covered a lot of ground, we've only scratched the surface of what Wetzel explores in her book. There's so much more to discover, and I encourage everyone to pick up a copy and delve deeper into these fascinating topics.
It's a book that will stay with you long after you've finished reading it, prompting you to reconsider your assumptions about aging, and inspiring you to embrace the incredible potential of your own mind.
That's all for this episode of the Bookworm Duo. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And don't forget to leave a review and share this episode with a friend.